Welcome back to the Webby and O'Neill channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about Gary Neville and Paul Scholes' comments on the current state of play at Manchester United and specifically on Ruben Amorim. As usual, get involved in the chat and don't forget to leave a like on the video, as you know it's much appreciated. Let's start with Gary Neville. Your first thoughts on his comments on Monday night?
Well, my first thoughts, like many Manchester United fans, about his comments is I just feel that he's unwilling to accept that this club has to be ruthlessly torn apart regardless of the consequences. I just listen to him and think to myself, you're not blaming the players. You're putting it on Ruben Amorim, making changes. That's not going to happen.
He did say as well, a snippet of it, that he expected the players would buy into the new system and see a bounce, but he's seen the absolute opposite. What did you make of that?
A bounce?
Because me personally, we did discuss it that, well, I think we said it round about the start of December. By that Liverpool game, or just after it, we expected to see a more settled side, maybe a little bit more entertainment than we've currently seen in the early stages of Ruben Amorim. But let's face it, we've not seen it.
If you was expecting a bounce from the players, you would have expected it at the start of the season under Erik ten Hag. You go back to the cup final, that should have really given them a bounce, a proper bounce. And then next thing you know, we had a good summer transfer window, players brought in. That in itself should have given the squad a bounce. So at the start of the season, you would have thought, right, here we go, cup winners, we beat Manchester City, we've got new players in. The feel good factor was there. It just never happened. So to expect a bounce when a new manager comes in, who's going to change everything, who's been brought in because of the carnage inside the club, I think these players were set in their ways. Some of them, to be honest, the legs had gone. Nothing was really going to change when I look back.
Yeah, judging off his comments, not even just in the past few weeks or a few months, but over the years, and other ex-Manchester United players as well, they've always mentioned about the culture inside Manchester United. There's too many bluffers, as Roy Keane says, inside that club. So why would he then expect a manager to come in at that point in the season that he did do, really, and then expect these players to actually then adapt and, you know, bring this style of play where we was expecting maybe a fun side of football?
I think when you look at ex-players, especially Roy Keane's the one what calls it out, what calls a spade a spade. When you look at Gary, he doesn't seem to call out the players individually like we do, like many other people do, and that's the problem. They're ignoring what the problem is, and we know what the problem is, and it's been player power. These players think they can do what they want, and that everything has to be geared for them as an individual, and they've all lost sight of it's a team game, it's Manchester United, and we all work together.
From, obviously, the eye test of what we're all seeing currently on the pitch, and I think a lot of us are in agreement of what we're seeing. It's just not good enough in terms of performance and actual player quality on the pitch on the day. But for me, I would rather be in this position now, going through the pain, going through the suffering, as
true.
Ruben Amorim has kept on saying at the start of his tenure, instead of going back through previous managers, where in the last few weeks, last few months, we start suffering and having that pain.
Yeah, I look at the fans, how they feel. Yes, they're coming out the ground. Gary Neville mentions they're coming out the ground, not happy, shoulders down, everything else like that. And this can't continue, but it will continue. I just look at the fans and they're right behind Ruben Amorim. They understand what's been going on for 10, 12 years and they're calling it out. And they're calling it out on some of these players. And they're right behind Ruben Amorim. They understand that there has to be a full clear out. And certain players, for a long time, have let United down. He talks about Marcus Rashford. Ruben Amorim has lost Marcus Rashford. He never had Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford wanted the team to be to be played around him as though he was the star man, not just under Ruben Amorim, under Erik ten Hag as well, and probably the previous manager. So players, knuckle down, get work, listen to the manager. Here's the coaches, do this, do that. Marcus Rashford hasn't done that, but he's not the only one. And unfortunately, Ruben Amorim has come in when it's carnage and chaos. But what it is, a lot of these players have lost their legs. You know, you look at Casemiro, you look at Eriksen. So he's got it hard to do. The balance of the side isn't right, and it won't be right no matter what happens now. We've just had a transfer window, right? There's no players coming. One player's coming to suit a system, but he's the only player what's been brought in to suit a system. So it won't change. The balance of the side won't change. The football won't change. And the experiment in what Ruben Amorim is doing will not change.
Yeah, I think with a lot of focus of what he talked about on his podcast was around Ruben Amorim and the players really not responding to Ruben Amorim. But surely, instead of pointing the finger at Amorim, he has to point the finger then at the club and the decision-making there that has led us to this point in the season by extending Erik ten Hag's contract, backing him, saying he was the best manager out there for the job, and then a few weeks later actually sacking him, then bringing Amorim in at that point in the season to change the whole style of play. So why not point the finger at Omar Barada, point the finger at Sir Jim Ratcliffe? Because they were the ones who made the decisions and it backfired, not just with Erik ten Hag. Look at Dan Ashworth. But them fingers should be pointed at them because it's them who Ratcliffe has always said will dictate and set the style of play at Manchester United. They've brought a manager in to play their way.
Well, it's like in the conversation what he's saying on Monday night. It's like he's putting all the blame on Ruben Amorim that the system doesn't suit these players and that he'll have to sort of change little bits here to suit the players. Well, I'm sorry, suiting these players, they've had everything. They've got everything. They've got all the coaches, the lot, and they're just not good enough. And I go back to the balance. It's not there, but they're using it as an excuse. And it is ignoring the fact that this is what we've got. Everyone inside the club, since Ineos have come in, they've brought their man in to play this way. And he's not accepting that. He's asking Ruben Amorim to change. So there's another manager being put under pressure because he's not able to get anything out of these players, and the players are going to win again. No, not this time, but Gary's not saying that. Gary's sort of saying it's now time for Ruben Amorim to change because there's not been a player bounce. There's not been a player bounce because the squad, not all the squad, but a lot of these players are finished in Premier League football. And I go back to Eriksen, I go back to Casemiro, and there's probably one or two more. Plus, there's a few young players in here, and Ruben Amorim is experimenting, and he has to experiment because we've not got a goal scorer, and you have to have goal scorers to win games. He talks a good game about Højlund and Xerxes, Ruben Amorim, but he's just being polite. He's doing what a manager should do. But you know we should have gone out and bought a top striker. And that was even before Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming.
Maybe not too polite, though. You go back a couple of weeks ago, maybe the worst team in United's history, I think he mentioned. And do you think he's maybe had words behind the scenes with some of the staff, your Omar Baradas, etc., and they've maybe said, listen, just rein it in a little bit, you know, because we do want to see some sort of performance from now until the end of the season in terms of progress of what we're seeing at the start of the season?
No, I don't think Ruben Amorim's been told to calm it down, and probably Gary Neville's not looking at it like that. He's just looking at the manager needs to sort of adapt and everything else like that. Ruben Amorim is calling it out, and for Gary to turn around and say we cannot keep losing, it will get worse. It's as simple as that, and you have to accept it. And I think the fans have accepted it. But the worst team in Manchester United's history, that's what Ruben Amorim's saying. Well, how do you expect to carry on winning games? You know, I mean, you just can't expect that. So why does Gary expect that we can't lose any more games? It's going to get worse. And that's the thing with Gary. And I go back to the beginning. He is not accepting, right, that it has to be ruthless in tearing this club apart, regardless.
Do you think they'll accept that, though? Behind the scenes, do you think they've made that decision, drawn a line in the sand and thought, right, this is how we're going to play, this is the manager we're going with, regardless of results, regardless of performances, we're going to get into at the summertime and bring in and recruit some players that we desperately need into this club, and then let's hope for a good start to the season next season?
Well, I think most fans have understood that the summer is pivotal. We've got to bring the players in to suit the system. And Gary and other pundits aren't sort of like saying we've got to wait till the summer. Well, there's the big changes, and we've got to take the pain as it is now. So the summertime is important. It won't change. It cannot change. You'll have moments We talk about cup football, where the young players will be able to express themselves in one-off games. That's what I'm looking forward to, but we're going to have to suffer. But I do believe, and I look at fans out there, and I think over the next couple of months, you'll see an outpouring of backing for Ruben Amorim, because they know it is not Ruben Amorim's fault. It's been brought into the chaos halfway through the season, and he's dealing with it. And it should have been dealt with years ago. Unfortunately, pundits like Gary Neville aren't calling it as it is. They're also ignoring the fact that this is the worst side, okay? Ruben Amorim's called it the worst side. He's also ignoring that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Omar Barada have said, we're going to bring a style of football to Manchester United. Well, this is the style of football, right, with cart horses. That's how people are talking about it. Some people haven't got the legs. Well, they're just not good enough. So you can't have a style, okay, until you've got the players in, and that's the summertime. And Gary Neville has to accept that and just say, look, it's Manchester United, right? The good old days and all that. We can talk about them and whatever. But what I'm seeing now is it's a decay over 10, 12 years, maybe even longer, okay? And it's been left to fester. He's not addressing the problem. Full clear out, full rebuild, everything, and it will take time.
I don't think, I know we've mentioned style, formation, etc., just like a lot of people out there. I don't think the emphasis is too much on a style of play, to be honest with you. I think the more important thing is the profile of player, a player's attitude, the player's qualities of what he will bring in terms of mobility, intensity to the actual football pitch, but obviously brings quality with that as well. Not more of a player who can adapt to a system in terms of playing just a rigid on the left-hand side as a wing-back, or a player just playing as a defensive midfielder. I do think they want to bring players in, and especially a focus on the younger talent who are actual versatile in 1, 2, maybe even 3 positions.
I think what it is, when you talk about positions and the style and all that, I think it only takes in the summer 2 or 3 players to add to this squad, because you've got the youth there who've got the versatility, who've got the energy, who want to run for 90 minutes, and they can adapt. It's the players what are looking at the end of the season to be coming out of this club, leaving or getting rid of. So 2 or 3 players can change the system, and it will change the mindset when you've got enthusiastic, good players coming in who understand what they're doing. But it's wrong to go at Ruben Amorim without going at the management over the years, what have gone on, and also about the people still inside the club. There is still a virus inside the club, and Ruben Amorim's walked right into it. And now to put pressure on Ruben Amorim to change tactics when he ain't changing tactics, to go against what he's listening, what the club is aiming to do, what the club is going to do going forward. He's going against what should be done, and it is exposing the players, whether Ruben Amorim's experimenting, whether the players just aren't good enough. It doesn't matter. These players are being exposed, and that's what the fans want. It wasn't being exposed before. They were pampering to the players. Erik ten Hag was pampering to these players. Other managers were pampering to these players. And what's it done? What's it done for Man United? Just a rot.
I've got to admit, though, from your own point of view, when you look at that lineup against Crystal Palace over last weekend, you started with basically 5 defenders and 5 midfielders. As we know, Kobbie Mainoo was the striker, false 9, whatever you want to call it. But you can't really see Mainoo really being used in that position again. Was that his breaking point with his players who were in the attack of look, you're just not good enough?
We tried something different and it didn't work. It was poor. But you've got to ask yourself, and Gary Neville's got to ask himself, what's the alternative? Would he have preferred Højlund to start every game or Xerxes to start every game? They're not producing. They're not scoring goals. It's not what Manchester United, the quality we expect. But the quality's not been good for a while. Yes, Højlund and Xerxes can do a job for now. There's no 2 ways about it. Will they come good in the summer and carry on next season? A lot of people doubt that. So they have to be in the market for a goal scorer. things have to change, but they're not going to change yet.
Yeah, what did you make of Paul Scholes' comments on the overlap? He was actually talking about the warm-ups, which we've discussed, and a lot of people out there, when you see Man United actually doing drills, like especially defensive drills, in the warm-up in front of everyone inside the ground. And he was actually saying, you know, the way the game's going tactically, and especially with the instructions being given, in what he sees, his head would be fried, to use his quote.
Yeah, woe betide me for criticising Paul Scholes, you know, one of the best midfielders of his generation. No, I think what Paul was alluding to, and what tends to happen with ex-players, they sort of look at what's going on now to what was going on then. And Paul was in a fantastic side for a long time, and they didn't need all this, like, let's do the drills at the back, let's get the back there, let's do the crosses and defend and all that. He's talking about, I just wanted to go out there like players did and just kick a ball and just run around. Well, that's fine, because they were all great players.
And they had that intensity in training as well, where it was just as competitive in training than it was on a match day, and we've probably not currently got that in the squad.
Well, no one went out there in Paul's day and said, right, we need you to try this out, try that out. And the thing is, these players need to try things out. They need as much coaching as possible, get out there, defend and all that. Now, for me, looking at that, I see nothing wrong in it, because how often do we concede goals in the first 5 minutes? We've all been going mad. So, right, get on the ball. Let's make sure you're awake. So there's a way of looking at it. But for Paul doesn't look at it in that way. He's looking at it and he's pouring scorn on it, right? Because why should you have to do this? This is what you should be doing. You should already be prepared. Paul, unfortunately, you was in a world-class side. You was a world-class player. These players clearly haven't got it. They haven't got it mentally, physically, so they need a different approach. But the world around football, how they approach the start of a game and training and everything else, has completely changed. So Paul, looking at it, he's looking at it from his time in football, and it sounds critical, but he's just giving how he was and what it is now, and there tends to be a sound of criticism, and it's not really criticism. It's he don't understand it.
Yeah, no, I do.
He says he don't understand it.
Yeah, I do get what he's saying in terms of like a freedom and enjoyment. Just wanted to get on the ball during the warm-up and just get a feel of it. Whereas I totally agree, to be honest, with what you say, that these players need a lot more coaching and they need to be a lot more focused at the start of games and at the end of the games, but it still doesn't seem to be working, does it? And there's going to be a lot more coaching that's going to be needed to be done, especially with the younger players though. But there's optimism for me going forward into the summertime and future transfer windows because of the profile and the strategy of players I think they want to bring into the club. And there's going to be a lot of chopping and changing. Let's have it right. But with Paul Scholes, you know, a winning side, a winning mentality, not just him, a lot of other players. Have we got that mentality inside the club right now? I don't think we have. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. Anything more to add? I've not got anything.
No.
Just thought you do a bit of a brief overview of their comments just to get you involved in the chat.
I just look at Paul Scholes and I say to myself, you know, he comes out with some right good comments and that, and he hits the nail on the head sometimes. But this quote, the way he was talking, I think it's just more of not criticism. So on Paul's behalf, it's like he's just looking at it how he was. Fantastic player, fantastic team. They didn't need to, the coaches didn't need to talk to him, but there's no confidence in this team, and they have to drill it in him. And it's a different era, different players, different mentality.
Yeah, no, I do agree. There's going to be a lot of changes needed, and let's hope it happens in the summertime because it's desperately needed. We can't be going through another season like we have done this season. So there's a lot of pressure here on Ineos and the footballing people in the scenes to get it right because the fans demand it, and it's as simple as that, especially when young Timmy and Grandad John are paying £66 for a ticket. Well, thanks for joining us, getting involved in the chat. Don't forget to leave a like on the video, as you know it's much appreciated, and we'll see you in the next one. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you.